All right, thanks, everyone. I'm calling to order the commission's business session. We do have a couple agenda items that we need to cover here. I'm going to ask if there are any objections, or excuse me, are there any additions to the agenda? Tony, do you want to do this formally as an addition?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. We have one from Tony. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During policy board, we forgot about a letter that the American Lobster Board asked us to send to NOAA Fisheries on rulemaking pertaining to addendum 22, 2022 and 21 and 22. So the board chair will bring that up.
Okay. Yep. We'll cover that. If unless there are any other additions or concerns, I'm going to assume that we can approve the agenda with that addition. Yeah, I don't see any hands up, so we'll move on to approval of proceedings from the annual meeting of October 23. I see a hand, Doug.
Just briefly, it indicates on the title page that we met there in 2022 instead of 2023.
Well, thank you. That's a great catch. That was, you know, that's one of those Easter eggs that we just put out there every once in a while, make sure somebody's looking. So you win the prize there. Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll make that edit. If there are no other edits.
Glad to offer my services here.
Wow, I love it. I love it. We'll consider that the proceedings approved with that edit. Very important edit, I may add. Are there any public comments for the business session here? We do have some folks from the public, but I don't see any hands and no online. Okay, great. So we'll move on. Tony will do the cover the action plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just have one slide and I'll talk while that slide gets put up. But the Commission Summer Flounder Scup and Black Sea Bass Management Board met with the Mid-Atlantic Council in December to set recreational specifications. And also during that time, there was a discussion on the summer flounder fly net definition and boundaries of the small mesh exemption area. And both bodies agreed to take up this issue, or their intent to take up these issues immediately in 2024 in order to address changes in time for NOAA to promulgate regulations by November of this year. This issue was not included in the Commission's action plan, so we wanted to see if the Commission would consider adding it to the action plan so we can have similar regulations if changes are made. And the reason why we would put these regulations in the Commission's FMP is because states have these regulations in their definitions. In particular for the fly net definition, as well as some states reference the exemption areas. While these measures are pertaining to mostly federal water fisheries, it is important to have cohesiveness between the two FMPs. The one thing to note for this, and this is something that we did not discuss at the council meeting because we weren't sure how it would impact the timeline of work that these two management bodies are doing as well, is that there is an amendment on sector separation and recreational accountability that the policy board is working on with the Mid-Atlantic Council. And because of this work on the summer flounder commercial measures, that work would be pushed back and would be addressed at the earliest in the fall of this year. And that would be presenting a scoping document for recreational accountability and the sector separation. And I can take any questions.
Questions for Tony?
There's just no objection.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just add, I realize not everyone is, you know, not every member state is paying close attention to this, but you know, although this is a long-standing issue, we feel like it's something that needs to be addressed. I was glad to see the mid take action and most likely doing the heavy lifting on this. So I'll just ask if there's any objection to adding this to our plan for 2024. I don't see any objections, and I personally really appreciate that. I would like to get this straightened out. So with no objections, we'll move forward on that. Thank you. All right, well, let's cover the lobster letter that we have as an added agenda item. And we have a motion on the board, so Jason, if you don't mind, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the Lobster Board, move the commission to send a letter to NOAA Fisheries to withdraw the commission's recommendation to implement the measures of section 3 and 4, except sections 3.1.1 and 3.2.1, transfers of multi-LCMA trap allocation of addendum 21 and all of addendum 22.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second to that motion? Sheree Patterson from New Hampshire. Thank you. Okay, any discussion on this motion? Yep, go ahead, Tony, sorry.
And just to add to the record, that the board, as Pat talked about it, the policy board did note the intention of us expressing to NOAA Fisheries how we intend the Mitchell provision to apply to the minimum size. And oh, that's for a different letter, and I'm so sorry. Never mind.
No problem. It's still good to have that on the record. We'll have that on the record as much as possible. However, yes, so it does not necessarily apply to this motion. So any further discussion on this motion? Any objection to this motion? Not seeing any. Great. So we'll consider that passed by unanimous consent. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob to go over the 2024 through 2028 strategic plan.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. In the interest of time and recognition of the fact that most folks around the table were here at the executive committee yesterday when I went over this in fairly high detail, I'm just going to go over some of the changes that were agreed to at the executive committee yesterday, and then we can, I'm happy to answer any questions. But the idea is that we are seeking approval of this document at this point. It's been a couple iterations have gone past the executive committee, and it was brought up the policy board at the annual meeting. And the suggested staff edits were included in briefing materials for the executive committee and for this business session. So with that, just a couple highlights worth noting that were not reflected in the edits that are included here. At the top of page 2, we're going to insert recognition that we also partnership and work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and USGS. Then moving down along, the majority of this was approved or recommended for approval as edited yesterday. And then getting down into the goals themselves. Goal 1, there were no recommended changes yesterday. And goal 2, Jason McNamee brought up the notion that a lot of pieces of goal 2 kind of look like MSE. And so, but we're going to put a specific reference to management strategy evaluations included as one of the bullets in goal 2. And then moving along, actually I missed one item, 2 items, let me see. Okay, so on page 8, there's a notion about where the bullet reads promote sustainable harvest of and access to rebuilt fisheries. There's a side note there about this might take some further discussion. The executive committee felt that it was okay as written, so we're going to maintain that in goal number 1 as it's written. And then in goal 2, there's a note, same idea that this may warrant some more discussion for the bullet that reads balance requests for fishery management from fishery management with finite assessment workload capacity. There was some good discussion on that yesterday, but ultimately the executive committee recommended that we keep that the same. And then no changes to goals 3, 4, and 5. When we went down to goal 6, there was a conversation about some of the sort of new approaches and strategies that some of our stakeholders have as far as commenting and generating some a lot of press and a lot of email activity and social media activity that really isn't accurate based on some of the science that the commission has. So there's a suggestion that we include a bullet there that really goes at directly and proactively engaging and commenting on some of the commission management decisions and scientific information to prevent or at least reduce some of the misinformation that's out there for some of these topics. And then, and throughout the document, there's also references to offshore wind / renewable energy. So we're going to balance that out. You know, offshore wind does take a lot of the bandwidth for a lot of the states and some of the commission activities, but there are also other renewable activity, energy activities that are out there that may be emerging and may become an issue for the commission. So we'll balance that out a little bit better throughout the document. So other than the staff suggested edits, those few that I just mentioned really are all the other changes that we'll weave into this document. The idea is if the commission is comfortable approving this today, you can do that. Staff will update the document and publish it on the website and share it with all the commissioners. So happy to answer any questions, but those are the highlights of the suggested changes.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions or comments for Bob? Not seeing any. As noted previously in our policy board discussions, we don't have any non-compliance findings. Is there anything else to come before us today? I'm not seeing anything, any hands online? No. Okay. Well, that's great. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. John Clark, second by Lynn Fagley. That's Delaware and Maryland. The folks closest to home are ready to go. Good for you. Safe travels, everyone.